At the time my parents got divorced, I was 6. So this is very early 90s, before a lot of families were getting divorced. And I had grown up in Germany. That's where I was born. And after my parents divorced, my mom went back to Germany. And this is very modern of my parents at the time, but I ended up living with my dad full time. So my dad was a full-time single parent. They were cross-continental co-parenting, which is like, it just seems very crazy, like thinking back then. But I think it's a lot to my independence now, because I started flying by myself to Germany to see my mom when I was 6. So my dad would walk me there, and then someone would take me on the plane. I would fly to Germany. I would meet my mom there on the other end. And I'm an only child and a youngest child. So I have 2 older half sisters, but I was my parents' only kid. So from a really young age, I had this independence of, okay, I could fly to Germany by myself. Like I can do everything by myself. And I think my parents always treated me as an adult at a really young age, and they instilled independence in me. And they always treated me like I was an adult. So my parents are much older now. My dad is 85, my mom is 72. And so I think they were at a phase in their life where they were a little bit more grown up. They had figured things out themselves, and they said, this is the way I want to parent. I'm not going to smother you. I'm going to let you be your own person and figure things out. And I think that independence has really gotten me to where I am today. And so when people are like, how do you travel all the time for work? I'm like, oh, I've been traveling since I was a baby. So it's something I'm so used to. So I have a friend who has really bad flight anxiety. Like she cannot get on a plane without taking something first. And we talked about it recently, and she's like, I think because my parents were divorced, and I thought every time I got on a plane, it was that I was leaving one parent and going to another one. And so she has a really bad time flying now 30 years later because of those experiences. Again, my parents being modern at the time, which is more common now. My parents actually got me a therapist when they were going through divorce. And this is 30 years ago. So you have to think I was 6 years old, and my parents said, okay, we're going to separate. We're going to give you someone to talk to. And so at the time I could actually process my emotions, not really remembering like what was happening, but they were so cautious about how to handle the situation that I think it made me feel like, oh, it's not a bad thing that they're separated. They're doing these things because they love me and they want to be happy people independently. And so the way they handled it then reflected on who I am as an adult today. So I think as I think about one day becoming a parent, all those things from someone being 6 really does reflect on who they are as an adult. People weren't getting divorced. People were not going to therapy. Parents weren't co-parenting. There's not even really cell phones at this time. So they were trying to co-parent in different continents without Wi-Fi, without cell phones. And the fact that they were able to do it, it's like if you live in the same city with someone else, it's definitely possible if they could do it between countries. So my mom was always planning work trips about coming back to where I was. And so she would make sure she was present at school. Even though she didn't live in the same state as me, she would come to different things. And so that time is really important. And I remember more the days that she was there than she wasn't there. And so now I'm so close to both of them, and they're really like friends to me now at this point. It's not really like a parental relationship. If anything, I probably parent them a little bit too much, but they're just so incredible. And I think hindsight is that they're older and I have the gift of age from them. And I think because they were fully mature adults by the time they got married and had kids, they realized how to be a parent more. I think a lot of times when you're still trying to figure yourself out in your 20s and 30s, it might be a little bit too early, but I think my mom waited till she was 36 to have me. My dad was 49, and I think they were in a place where they were fully ready to become parents, and I think that really reflected on the way they raised me versus feeling like I have to do this because of my age, which I think a lot of women feel that way now. Like, oh, I'm 30, I have to do this thing now, but they don't feel ready because society keeps telling us we have to have kids by a certain age, but I think they waited, and that waiting made them better parents to me. My parents are so grateful for anything if I buy them a flight or book something for them, but now it's like travel. I want to make sure that they're like very comfortable. So it's just making sure that they have everything that they need. So I have a half sister who's older. She lives in Connecticut. So my dad wanted to see them for Thanksgiving. So it's just, he's like, oh, thank you so much for this flight. Like he has so much gratitude for a flight that I could book for him. And it's like, if I can work hard to make sure that you can go see your great grandkids, it makes me so happy. Or my mom to be able to go on a trip and do the things that she wants to do. So now they're probably annoyed with me because I'm like, don't do this, don't go here, remember this, like wear your face mask. Like I'm telling them all of these things. But my dad grew up really poor. He was born at the end of the Great Depression and grew up, my grandpa was a preacher. They had no money, like very, very poor. My dad only could go to college because he joined the Air Force and was able to go on a GI Bill. My mom immigrated to the US during the Vietnam War and came to America with literally nothing. So between the two of their stories, I thought if they come from nothing, they come from war, they come from the Great Depression, and they could make this life for for themselves, I can do anything possible because they've given me this great life that I could have, that anything is possible here. So if I don't live my life to the fullest, it's almost a disservice to the sacrifices that they made for me to be here. My mom is also Vietnamese, so I grew up with a very much a tiger mom who was like, you have to do these things, go to school, you need to graduate, you need to get a job. But she also taught to me independence. And what she told me was never rely on anyone else for anything. You need to be able to fully support yourself. So if you're in a relationship or a situation, you can walk away and not feel like you have to rely on another person for something or be in a scenario you don't want to be in because you need this person for this thing.